Hello again, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to American Zarathustra. We have a very special feature for you today in an effort to encourage people in the white positive sphere to gain the benefits of martial arts. We're going to have this in-depth discussion. My guest and I are both martial arts teachers, so you're in for a big treat today. My guest and I, of course, we're teachers, and we'd like to share our expertise with you to help demystify the martial arts. This show in no way, shape, or form is advocating for violence of any kind, but rather is an educational overview of learning martial arts for self-defense and health purposes. So for starters, I want to remove all notions of being braggadocious or egocentric. This is not going to be an hour of flexing, okay? Rather, we mean to give you valuable information so you can save massive amounts of time and money to make informed decisions about what martial arts might fit you. I want to preface this discussion by saying there's a world of difference between sport martial arts and real combat. We are not endorsing any products or systems, by the way. So we'll try to be as unbiased as we can about that, but that's one thing you have to know going into this discussion. Also, there's a huge cultural aspect to martial arts that you may or may not be something you want to engage in, but it's something to be aware of. Lastly, you cannot learn martial arts by talking about it. So YouTube videos, etc., those are great resources for supplementary learning, but you have to physically engage in it to truly understand it. So this discussion should hopefully, and many more discussions on this, should cut you in front of the line and kind of save you that time, get you to be informed on the decisions you want to make regarding choosing a school or a system. So we hope that there'll be more shows, and also we're aware of the hazards that we live in today, on a daily basis, and the trajectory of our political situation. So it's really time to have a discussion about taking control of our own self-defense. So I'm very happy to be joined today by a good friend from the White Art Collective and an exceptional musician, ladies and gentlemen, Luke Mason. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Donald. I really am looking forward to getting to talk about some of this stuff and just share, some of the ways that I've benefited from training and to hear from you as well on that. So.
Excellent. Yeah. And so just a quickie, the audience may not know that you and I met each other in real life. You played bass with me for my band at the White Art Collective Music Fest. And I thank you very much. It was fantastic. But we did have a chance to talk martial arts a little bit. For whatever reason, we weren't able to actually kind of work out. We were focusing, I guess, on the show. Anyway, so it was kind of cool to see you do some Wing Chun and talk about some other systems that you've learned. Could you give the audience a bit of an overview of your background quickly in martial arts?
Oh, yeah. Let me try and just simplify it down just a little bit, because I'm one of those dudes that'll train with anyone that I feel has something valuable to teach, and that's usually a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I started with Korean martial arts, Taekwondo, and did a couple systems, different systems of that. And then I got into ninjutsu a little bit there for a few years. And then I went back to I did some JKD, some Jeet Kune Do. I really liked that.
Which was created by Bruce Lee. We have to advocate.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yes, definitely. And that really stuck with me. And then part of the reason I got into Farang Musul is it's like a version of Hwarang Do, which is very similar. If you're not familiar with Hwarang Do, it's very similar to Hapkido.
So now, in English, what does that mean for someone who knows nothing about Korean martial arts?
Okay, so Hwarang, they're basically the Korean version of the Japanese samurai.
Oh.
And so they had like an honor code and a chivalry kind of society. And Hwarang means flowering youth. Okay. So the Hwarang Do is like the way of the flowering youth, or the way of flowering manhood, which sounds kind of odd, but that's what it means, and that's what they were called and stuff. And I really liked that art because, so it was just kind of perfect for me because it had a lot of the kung fu and trapping and stick fighting and grappling elements that I really liked about the JKD that I had taken.
Jeet Kune Do,
But and it still had some of the traditional stuff that I liked from Taekwondo.
Okay.
Like the high kicks, and also I love forms. That's one thing that I don't really fit in with a lot of Jeet Kune Do practitioners because of that. I actually think that forms are very valuable, even though you may not necessarily like fight and look like the form, and it might be mixed up and random. But I just still feel it's a very valuable practice, and they're beautiful,
Yeah, let me back up a little bit here to help the audience again, because it's very easy for guys like us to nerd out, and then we're speaking kind of like nerd kung fu language. But anyway, so Jeet Kune Do means the way of the intercepting fist. It's a martial arts system that Bruce Lee created, and it basically takes all of the traditionalism out of martial arts and just gets right down to the raw functionality of it. So it's whereas like Luke was just talking about, I love the forms. That's a form is a routine of movements that are put together in a sequence, and you practice that over and over and over and over until it becomes second nature to you. And then every martial arts system might have, I don't know, 10 to 100 forms. There's a lot to learn. So if you're not good at remembering sequences of motions like I am, then you would lean more towards just kind of like, here's the technique, practice the technique separate from the form. So that's actually an important topic in terms of educating people about how they want to go into martial arts, because I feel that there's a certain level of, I don't know, it's kind of like you have to go through a jungle of cultural practices just to get to something useful that you could go out and defend yourself with, like buying the uniforms, the system, learning how to count 1 to 10 in Japanese, or I feel that a lot of people buy into Orientalism, that a lot of martial arts schools, they're businesses. They have to pay rent, utilities, make a profit. They know that Americans, Westerners in general, are totally ignorant of Asian martial arts, and therefore a lot of us are kind of drawn to it because it's sort of mystical and fascinating. It looks very powerful, and they're able to sell you Orientalism rather than self-defense. And so I want to warn the listener to be very careful of that. Guys like you and I, Luke, we went through years of that, and we do enjoy that. Like, I embraced that. I did like that. But at the
I
same
do too, yeah.
Right. And not everybody might like that, though. So they would want to find a system that has less of that kind of the bowing and the cultural aspects, and try to just get straight to the street defense, that kind of thing. So this is just a thing to put on people's radar. There's a lot to enjoy in the cultural realm. And not all martial arts are Asian, by the way. There's a Russian system called Sistema. That is phenomenal. And if you ever can study Sistema, I strongly recommend you go for it. I just have to tell you, Luke, there's a funny little clunky noise in the background. I don't know.
Oh, shoot. I gotta blame Alma Lahar for this, because I'm drinking a Bang right now, and that's the energy drinks that we were drinking to stay awake when we were on the road to Whackfest.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I'm just wondering what is that noise going on. Are you playing bongos?
I didn't realize that my mic was picking that up, so I apologize. I was just clicking the can in and out. I think that's a really good thing to bring up. I used to really love the Orientalism aspect of training, and I still do. Yeah. But it as someone who is, racially aware, it made me more sensitive to that. And I think it's important, yes, I think, can we still appreciate other cultures? Definitely. But, now that I'm racially aware, I'm probably not, I don't necessarily, want to fully take that culture in and imbibe it, because I want to reflect my own culture.
For sure. This this is what's kind of fascinating about martial arts in general is that you only have two arms and two legs, and
Yes.
we all have to obey the laws of physics. We all are subject to gravity. So there really is no reason why we couldn't invent our own Aryan martial arts, if you will. Something that might be suitable for the kind of environments that we live in and that kind of scenario. So that's a fascinating topic in and of itself, I'd say.
Totally.
So
well,
let me
plus
give it.
there's the. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. You give your point.
Just a little tangent. The idea of Aryan martial arts is actually one that's really dear to my heart. I was scouring through the internet a few years back and was watching Red Ice, and they had this gentleman on. I think he was of some kind of Middle Eastern background, Ali Aliabad.
Yeah.
And he wrote this book called Zen, the Martial Arts, and the Red-Bearded, Blue-Eyed Barbarian.
Wow.
And I thought it was a fascinating book, and it talked about historical sources making reference to the fact that Bodhidharma, Damo, the fellow who taught the Shaolin monks,
correct,
was actually like a red-bearded Aryan barbarian guy. Wow. And I've heard things like that before from like Robert Sepper from Atlantean Gardens on YouTube about how traditional depictions of the Buddha and of various Asian gods were always like blue-eyed and fair-skinned, for instance. And I just think it's really fascinating.
It's a very, very exciting topic that I could actually speak a lot to that, since I studied Buddhism in Asia for many years. And I went to Shaolin Temple at their official location in Queens, New York. I went there for 3 years, which, I think maybe that'd be a subject for another show. But
God, I'm so jealous. It's so awesome.
So I just want to kind of start the show with sort of talking about our backgrounds a little bit. I'll tell you how I got into martial arts was because I was a victim of a home invasion.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was more of a kind of, I'm studying Buddhism. I'm growing my hair long. I'm making art and music. I was not ever into sports or martial arts or anything of that kind. And after that experience, which was very horrible, I promised myself I will never let anybody do that to me again. It's sad and painful that sometimes people have to experience something that real to make them snap out of it and realize the world isn't all, rainbows and unicorns, and that you've got to take responsibility. And, obviously whites are targeted for extinction, so a discussion on martial arts is certainly due. And there's very few people, I think, in our sphere. Maybe not. Maybe there's a lot of people in our sphere, but nobody's really talking about it. I hope that more people maybe would come to the table. But I like to try to keep this as efficient as I can and advocate for people who know nothing about martial arts. So I will do a tiny background. So I did start off with the Bruce Lee system. It was, I would do, say, a half hour of training and then an hour or two of sparring. So it was the total opposite of a traditional approach where, here's how to block, punch, and kick, put the gloves on, and then my teacher would just go on me and I would have to defend myself. But it's in a trusting environment, that he's not injure you. And it ended up being a blast. And I was completely hooked. I loved it. I loved sparring. But I had that itch for traditional martial arts, went on to study Hung Gar. I moved to New York City, and I joined the Shaolin Temple there with Master Shi Guolin. People can look that up. Then I moved to Taiwan, where I learned Long Fist. I lived with a Tai Chi master for a year as a homestay program. And then when I came back to America, I studied many of the animal forms, dragon, snake, crane, tiger, these kinds of things. And then I ran a sparring club with one of my best friends who's a Wing Chun teacher. And we did that for 8 years. So there's a massive, now I teach just privately out of my home, and I don't ask for money. I do it for pleasure and to help people. So I just dropped a bunch of funny words there, that all these different systems have different physics to them. There's different ways of approaching combat. So what I take away from it, though, and what I do in my teaching is that I always talk about strategy, technique, and principle. Strategy, technique, and principle. So over and over and over, let's say, someone's flying at you to tackle you, or they're throwing a haymaker punch, or they come at you with a knife, et cetera, et cetera. So strategy would be, what do you do in this kind of situation? You have to work certain things out. Now, if you're tall or short or fat or young or old, et cetera, skinny, you have to accommodate that into your strategy. This guy's twice the size of me. What's my strategy, right? So that's a fairly easy concept, right? But strategy also has a lot to do with positioning, how you move. And where are you in relationship to the opponent, and these kinds of things. So understanding the spatial dimensions. Okay, so techniques. Techniques are just different ways to punch, block, and kick, to grapple. How do you, if somebody grabs your wrist, how can you roll out of it and then put them into a wrist lock? There's many, probably thousands of strategies out there, right? Techniques out there and people can look through YouTube videos for that. I'm going to play one of my favorite YouTube videos in a minute here to demonstrate something to the audience, and you and I can talk about it a bit. And then principle. So principle is physics. It means how do you generate the power? So, for example, in Wing Chun, which you studied, I would ask you, how do you generate power in Wing Chun? What's the physics involved in that system that makes it formidable?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it would be anchoring in the center line, and as far as the learning how to, and I'm going to use another funny word, fajing.
Okay.
The vibrational principle, similar to what Bruce used to generate power for the 1-inch punch. The wave.
Explain to the audience, what does fajing?
Okay,
what does fajing?
This is from my perspective. See, I didn't start in Chinese martial arts, so I still kind of look at everything like a Taekwondo guy, because that was my first.
That's how it works.
But for instance, the way I view it is very similar to the way that a karate guy views using power from the center of your body, and directing that power in a wave out through your striking arm or leg. And a lot of it has to do with your mind. There's a saying in Qigong, Qi follows thought.
Okay.
So a lot of it is mental, but there's definitely something to be said for generating your power from the waist, and then directing that out your limb, and then from your limb possibly to the weapon that you're using. So that's the way I think of it. I think of two basic ways, because I notice there's a little bit of a difference in the way that some systems move. Like in Taekwondo and in Kung Fu, I noticed that there would be more of that vibrational kind of striking, the fajing method. But then when I look at other martial arts, like Filipino martial arts like Arnis, or even Western boxing, it seemed to be more like it was about body mechanics. Like, for instance, in boxing, when you're doing a right cross, you're pivoting on your right ball of your foot as you punch, and you're dipping your knee a little bit. I had one of my JKD instructors was a Kenpo guy, and in Kenpo, they really like to break down the laws of motion into very, specific scientific terms. And they had this thing called marriage of gravity. So in addition to that body mechanics and also the vibrational power, he would also, say that an example of a right cross in boxing is you're dipping your knee into the ground. That's also a form of marriage of gravity, because you're marrying the force of gravity with your strike.
Yeah. So this is an interesting topic, because there's only one word for gravity, I guess, in English, right? But there's so many ways to apply the force of gravity in the way that we move. And this is what martial arts are, is they're, in a sense, they're scientific systems of the physics of motion, the economy of motion, how to generate power. So, for example, you're making some excellent descriptions there. I do Fa Jing in my Kung Fu. I should first off say that Kung Fu is really a huge umbrella term for all Chinese martial arts. So there's no one thing called Kung Fu. It's like the word food. Okay, you've got hamburgers and cereal and bananas. And, like it's just a word to talk about all Chinese martial arts. You've got snake, crane, monkey, drunken style, long fist. You've got northern and southern versions. You've got family versions. It's insanely huge. It's giant. So let's just kind of let the audience understand that. But then to kind of get down into specifics again, though, I'm really good at crane style. And think of a crane. How does a crane move? They're very elegant. They're very light. And they have they can kind of go from 0 to 60, like they're very fast. You see, like kind of skittish almost, right? So the way the crane would, let's say if there were water on the crane's wings, it would whip its wings to throw the water off. So this is a kind of that whipping type motion where the body is undulating in some sense, is one kind of Fa Jing that you can get. But one of the most essential aspects of it is that you drop suddenly. Like there's a lot going on in your legs where you have to kind of think of it like if you were carrying, I don't know, some food and a glass of milk or something, and you lost your balance for a second, you would instinctively drop your center of gravity down a bit to kind of capture yourself, so you don't fall, right, or drop anything. That like sudden and jerking, like lowering motion that creates a ripple that goes through your body while simultaneously locking you in or rooting you with gravity. And then the result is that you produce an extremely powerful strike that's like way stronger than just your arm muscle. You have to we never just hit with our arms per se. We use our whole body weight in our movements and such. So like this picture that I have on the screen here, you've got two guys kind of working through this. Looks like a Tai Chi push hands. So the center of gravity is based inside the pelvis. It's sort of like just below your belly button, right? So I would say all martial arts start from there. If you have to control your center of gravity and or control the opponent's center of gravity, right?
Yes.
So then there's this thing, connectivity, right? So in Shaolin, they have something called the 3 sections. So the 3 sections would be like, say, legs, torso, and arms. Okay, that's one. Okay. Or it would be foot, knee, and hip. Or it would be hip, shoulder, and hand. Or it could be shoulder, elbow, and hand. And all of those are 3 sections. When you generate some kind of motion, it has to come from gravity. You have to push yourself off the ground and then coordinate these 3 sections in such a way where there's a bang. You're kind of exuding immense power. So there's a lot more to it that, people that just see the movies and they think, hey, yeah, cool, wow, I want to be Jackie Chan. And it's entertaining, and that's cool. I think that's done a lot for martial arts, but it's a movie, right? So there's a great deal of subtlety that you have to learn, and these things take time. If you have a good teacher, that's awesome. That helps a lot. But I'm just kind of getting through some of the topics of martial arts. So, from your perspective, when you're teaching, what's your methodology of teaching?
Well, I like to. That's interesting to consider, because I have such a mixed bag background.
Yeah.
between a lot of the JKD training that I did was actually based in Western martial arts, with Western boxing
Right.
and wrestling. Like a lot of the wrestling was from either American freestyle or catch as catch can, which is it's a style of European submission wrestling from England. And so, uh, as far as like the way that I like to teach, I've actually had a very difficult time trying to teach people like the small efficient motions that are used in the actual techniques or combat. If I start with that first,
Yeah.
it takes like twice as long to teach someone something. But for
Mm-hmm.
some reason, when I start them out with very basic, like the basic forms of Taekwondo are all, they're like Kicho One and the Pogway forms, or like the Taiguk forms. They're all very large motions. You're making big stances.
Yeah.
And you're using, you're chambering your fist at your waist, and
Yeah. It looks very classical, basically. Yeah.
Yes. And I've found that I get better results. Just not saying that is every, but for me, I get better results in starting from the classical kind of training, and then once they have a basis in how to move their body that way, it's easier to teach them how to throw jabs and crosses and hooks and uppercuts, and how to do trapping, and how to do joint locks and grappling and reversals and whatnot.
Yeah, teaching's a whole other thing. When I start teaching, I try to show people like the menu. So like you can do this, you can do all these things, and then let them physically feel, of course, what it's like to be on the receiving end. I've never hurt anybody. I obviously never hurt anybody. I'll demonstrate a technique, and then I'll sort of like stand away from them and do it at real time, like in real speed. And then they go, "Oh my God, that's vicious!" Like, wow, that's you could easily kill somebody doing ABC, doing whatever techniques. So I'm a huge proponent of sort of, I don't want to use the word push hands because that's exclusive to sensitivity training is what I'm trying to say, where people are interacting, and I use myself as the dummy a lot. But then there's a whole psychological realm to this where you have, I've got a new student. He's extremely cerebral. He's a very, very bright young man. I mean, he's going to go places. He's very smart, but all that talent in his mind is kind of lacking in his body, It just totally uncoordinated. And, he's really brave just for coming to class, I'd say, to be that awkward and kind of clumsy and like not used to his own body and all these things. It's going to take time, but I try to frame it like, you have to take care of yourself. You've got to defend yourself. And you also want balance in your life. You don't just want to be cerebral. You know what I'm saying? And not only that, there's forms of Kung Fu that's known as like scholarly Kung Fu, whereby you become fascinated in the study of, like you're saying, how Qi, thought leads Qi. What is Qi? It's just prana or bioelectric energy.
Vril.
Vril, it's also Vril. Now this is talk about a whole other show right there. Oh boy. I'm aggressively researching that. I really want to know how the connection between Chinese martial arts Qi and Indian prana and esoteric vril. How do we say what was Aryan vril energy? So, but the energy stuff it's very, very mystical to people, and a lot of people just don't buy it. You've got your like mixed martial arts type guys that they're just totally physical. It's just all how training yourself to get punched in the face 100 times and like
that's kind of my bros that I from my grappling class, like
it's like I don't want to like throw any shade on those guys that
no,
they are who
I
they are.
understand.
They're doing what they're doing. They're having fun. It is a sport, and that's critical to understand. It's a sport, and blah blah blah. We can go into those sorts of discussions, but I don't know. My feeling is like it works in the cage maybe, but at the same time, why would you want to put yourself in a place where you could be injured? Whereas martial arts always save you from injury. That's the idea, is to maximize your opponent's injury and minimize your own. You don't go in there thinking, I can break my nose and box my ears and I'll still keep going. That's not the attitude for the average person, going or going to a movie or that kind of thing.
Well, and that strategy doesn't work so well once, say, for instance, if your opponent has an edged weapon,
or if they have 5 friends, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You don't want to just be like the Rocky Marciano and absorb the punishment.
It's not. But, this is the thing I'm always trying to demystify, is this is not the movies. It's not TV.
Yeah.
You have to try to be what's constructive about it or realistic about it, and look at what's the value for you. Now that's not to say that you couldn't use many of those techniques in real life. It's it's very limited. Why limit yourself? When you could go to some kind of traditional school and get a full system. So
I feel the same way about that issue, because I've noticed that it's good for pressure testing, because the sport martial arts are really good. You could go at full intensity and people don't get hurt as bad, but you're also training yourself to favor techniques that aren't going to cause as much. They're not going to stop the opponent as much as something that's, say, from a traditional school that, like a military personnel might train in something, that is outlawed in the ring, but it's very effective in real life.
Oh yeah. That's the good stuff.
So I have this little quip. You were talking about, the MMA bros and how sometimes they're not really into the whole chi side of martial arts. But my bros and I, we had this particular kung fu instructor that was, he would visit the school occasionally, and he's one of my old instructors, but he would try to steal students from different classes.
Oh my God.
And he was kind of like one of these dudes who was really into the mysticism part and the Asianism or the the Oriental part. And he would try to mystify people, and it worked a lot of times. He was good enough at what he did to where he would impress people and end up stealing people's students. But my MMA bros were there one day and they caught it. And later I got together with these dudes, and I was at their house, and these are pretty working class real dudes. They have the wrestling mat in their living room, and they're training their boys to wrestle and stuff. And but they brought up this thing. They said, "Oh yeah, my chi is so strong that one time I hit my wife with my chi, and then 9 months later a baby popped out."
Well, there you go. There's a kind of chi there, I suppose.
I just thought it was funny.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I love my bros. They're all good and whatever. And it's a young man's game, and that's my point. Martial arts is for everybody of all ages and all sizes, etc. So that's kind of a thing. So since we're on the topic, I feel like I should talk a little bit. I do Qigong, and I learned Qigong under the Shaolin master, and then I also studied in Taiwan, and just in New York I met some different people. So let's just demystify it. In ancient China and even today, people don't have health care. They don't have doctors, they don't have access to, or they can't afford it, etc. So it's a kind of a Chinese medicine whereby you do a variety of breathing and stretching exercises. But there's I don't know, it's really hard to explain. Chi is essentially life energy. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the difference between you and, a dead body? It's the chi, right?
Yeah.
By Western science, we would call it bioelectric energy. You're the synapses in your brain. And this is more for the audience than for you. I'm sure you know all this stuff. I'm just gonna.
Oh, I'm into Qigong myself. I had a private teacher in Spokane, and ironically, the dude was like a real serious Catholic, but he was way into it too. Qi and Reiki, both actually. Qigong and Reiki.
So there you are. So Reiki is more the healing application of Qi, to my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And Ki is just Japanese for Chi, which again is, same word as prana, same word as vril, but scientifically, Westerners would just say it's life energy. So the thing is that in the West, we don't know, somehow or other, we were cut off from these traditions from our ancient past that taught about these energies. And these things can be practiced. So how did I learn Qi? I was skeptical about it. What is Qi? I want to feel it. I want to understand it. So going back, working with the Shaolin master, he explained, how to cultivate it, how to trigger it, how to move it around your body. He was the kind of guy that, you could kick him in the groin and he wouldn't feel anything because he was using Qi as an iron shirt kind of thing. Like he could smash enormous bricks over his head and do all that stuff all through Qi. And I witnessed all this with my own eyes. So anyway, so how do you create Qi? So you have to first establish a meditational route. You have to become Zen-like, which means you have to silence, or not necessarily silence your mind, but don't follow your thoughts until you reach a state of conscious stillness. So from there, you can concentrate on an energy point in your body. Sometimes you call them chakras, but it really could be anywhere. It could be your hands, it could be your head, anywhere. So there's a kind of a line that goes around your in acupuncture and Chinese medicine. This is sort of a celestial kind of a cycle from the top of your head to between your legs and back up.
Oh yeah. The microcosmic orbit? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just trying not to use crazy words so much, but microcosmic orbit.
Sorry about that.
I'm trying to demystify it, you know what I mean? I mean, these are cool words. They're fun. But
totally,
I'm trying to make this understandable. So think of it like your nervous system for your energy body. So you start off at one point. You could start at, say, a point between your eyes. And you concentrate all of your consciousness on that one point, and you breathe into it. So every time you breathe, you're bringing in life energy into your body, and then you concentrate through your will that energy into that point, and you will feel a warmth, a fullness, and a tingling. You will sense like there's energy there. I get it. It's real. I actually feel this. Once you feel it, you know it's real. So then you do the same thing on all those pressure points or acupuncture points on that cosmic scale. And then now you're doing Qigong. So from here, that's kind of the foundation. You can then take it and move it around your internal organs. It's a whole other field where I think I'm kind of going way off topic here a bit. But well, anyway, I just wanted to explain.
It's good, man.
It's something that people should check out if they want to. It's very healthy. So anyway, back to martial arts. Let's watch a video. And this is and we'll comment on it. I'll stop it periodically throughout. So here's the fun and cool thing for the audience. There is sort of short range styles and long range styles. So short range is literally just kind of, within elbow and hand reach, right? It's just sort of everything within your physical reach without leaning, right? It's anything that's close to you. Something like that. People who are shorter tend to, I feel, gravitate to short range styles because they don't have the height. They don't have the reach. Yeah. They have to become proficient and deadly at fighting in a small space. So Okay, so that's Wing Chun. That's that style.
Yes.
Now, the other stylist in this video does long fist. Now, I learned long fist in Asia and I in Taiwan, and it's a huge part of my sparring style. I love long fist. So anyway, long fist is just what it sounds like. It's very, long range. So we're going to have a look at the video. I have no idea about copyrights and all that whatnot. I give full credit to, whoever made the video, and I recommend subscribing to his channel on YouTube as well. So let me, okay, give me 10 seconds to get this up and running here. Share screen, and got to get the audio on. That's my one little mistake I make often. And here we go. Yeah. So what can you see on the screen there? The fill up.
I see the fill up. Wing Chun.
Okay, we're gonna expand this. Right. I've got our sound on, and it's Wing. Yeah. So anyway, here we go.
I've been training in long fist for I guess the past 14 years. I'm just gonna throw a strike at Spencer and see how he would deal with it. Wow. And you're the person coming in that energy is yeah. Wow. So here's a punch. So all martial arts, I guess, is just a series of circles and lines, right? This doesn't even need to be with two arms. So I'm gathering in and then coming forward. Okay, so fast would be like just even bouncing off. Set them off balance. How would you look up? You have all of this underbelly, this armpits, that's no good. And you're even you're here in this. I'm able to twist up. I'm able to use my knees. I'm able to just bring the person down. Yeah, and it's just. You're becoming one with that person. It's a very long fist kind of typical punch is that it comes up from you're almost using your shoulder. Yeah. To develop that.
Okay, can you hear me? You there, bud? Let's see.
Here, yes, I was muted. Sorry. Okay. I heard like an echo, so I thought maybe it was me, but
it's probably me actually. Okay, that's the thing I forgot. We'll mute ourselves when the video is on. I want to check the audience here. Audio, okay. We'll watch the echo next time around. So a lot happened there. What did you see in this video so far?
Well, I really liked how he was generating power and how he was. Even though the way that he sticks, like when he's doing blocks, is a little bit more like bouncy or vibrational, I still feel like it's a really valid way to deal with those attacks, and it's a nice counterpoint to the Wing Chun way, which is more of like a blending, I guess.
So you mentioned a word sticking here. Now this is a martial arts term or kung fu term, really, where so. You see the guy in the brown jacket went to punch him. The guy in the white shirt, long fist guy, he blocked down, but yet his arm was still touching the other guy's arm. So
and it's like the rotation of his arm grabbed onto the other guy's arm,
which is wild, right? And so with the hands and arms in contact, we generally call that sticking. It's not grabbing though. It's just like, so if the guy in the brown jacket, if for some reason he moved, or he pulled another technique, when you're sticking to or touching the other person, your opponent, and they move, it's kind of like having an extra set of eyes. You don't even have to see where they're going. You can feel where they're going. So that's the importance of sort of stickiness, if you will. That bounciness that you were talking about, that's very Fa Jing. That's a kind of a Fa Jing.
Yeah.
How is that done? So this takes a lot of training where you basically want to make your body supple in the sense that it's bouncy, that it is potential energy, not, when you say you punch, let's say you punch a hard object and you push your whole weight in, and then there's the contact and it's all very stiff and hard. Well, in martial arts, you're vacillating between yin and yang, empty and full, soft and hard, over and over and over. And in this particular case, he's using both. There's a dynamic energy, a strength that you see in him, but yet he's bouncy like a reed. You know what I'm saying? Like a blade of grass, like a branch of a tree. He's still bouncy. And that is very powerful. That stuff's very powerful. That's stuff that I do and I teach as well. But it's just neat to try to get the audience to be somewhat like literate in what they see. So let's move on a little bit more with that. I'm going to mute, and we're muting and continuing.
That energy. This kind of, you see, like my body is pivoting. Yeah. I'm gathering in, and then coming forward. Okay. So fast, it would be like a just even bouncing off.
Say I'm off balance. How would you finish me off?
You have
key thing to know here. Notice how he said, I'm gathering in. So that's a kind of a martial arts term as well. Gathering in. See, you're not always going against the opponent. They're throwing energy at you. So you can gather it in. You can absorb their punch, their kick, their strike, whatever it is. And then from there, you bounce off of that and back out of that. You take the energy that they're giving you and throw it back at them. It's quite cool the way that stuff works. And
have all of this underbelly.
Oh yeah, that's
in the armpits.
That's no good.
And you're even like you're here in this. I'm able to twist up. I'm able to use my knees. I'm able to just bring a person down.
Yeah.
And it's just you're becoming one with that person. It's a very long fist kind of typical punch is that it comes up from like you're almost using your shoulder as well.
Yeah,
to like develop that energy. So this kind of, you see, like my body is pivoting with it, and the speed that is developed from
a lot of speed,
something like that, just coming down. So if you're coming at me, then this big move is going to develop a lot of speed. And from here, we've contracted, and now we can expand.
Yes.
And with that expansion, it can be anything, you know. It could be a back fist, it can be a crane's beak, or it could just be the same.
So again, long fist technique. Right there was a really, really good example of generating the power from your legs, from how you're positioning your lower half of your body. The knees throw the hips throw the shoulders throw the arms. So when you kind of whip it around from down, from your feet, you whip that energy up and out of your body. Look how fast his fist is moving. It's insane.
Oh yeah.
It's like, it's just flying out of there. And whatever, if you put your hands up or not, the full weight of his body is behind that arm, and it's completely connected from fist to foot. So this is martial arts. This is why people who are small and slight and etc. can harness physics to create this powerful energy. What were some of your responses to the technique?
Well, I really liked the even just the combination itself. You could tell he had a high degree of control, bodily control, as he's doing basically like that kind of long fist overhand, kind of like a bear paw hook, and then he kind of contracts his body and crouches, and then when he explodes up with that, it's either like we used to call it, I don't know, it almost looked like a crane's wing or like a crane's beak or something, but he was actually striking with the forearm, or like you said, it could have been a back fist. When he stands up, and that was just an extremely powerful movement, and I really liked how, I got to see the beauty of how the Chinese martial arts generate power in that way, and the way it works with the stance too, and how he's like you could tell he's gathering it in, and he's like anchoring, and then he explodes, and he's able to use that anchoring to like push his power off of the ground and into the opponent. It was beautiful.
I think also it's worth noticing the flow of movements, how it's not, now we do this, now we do this, now we do that. Nothing's compartmentalized. Everything moves into the next motion. And it's hard to imagine. Try to imagine being like a locomotive, you're this giant chunk of metal flying down the tracks, and you're not going to stop that energy. You're going to keep it flowing throughout your body. So so long as his legs are rooted and he's able to move them around appropriately, then he can continue that momentum that he generated, and then bang, exploded in another direction. So there's a little bit of Wing Chun later, so it'll be a nice contrast between long range and short range. So this guy's showing us long range. And mute.
Same exact the opposite, but there's these big wide movements that come, they're very like circular, and they aren't necessarily going to come in on the center line the way that Wing Chun does.
In Wing Chun, I'll do a similar thing. You can see sort of the stark differences here. I just need to touch. All right, so boom, there's that touch. I've already gotten him off from here, which is great. And I've started taking the center line. From there, of course, using our Chi Sao skills, I want to get in. So I can do a Lop Sao, I can do whatever it is. Boom. So, it's very good. Yeah, boom. Same thing. I just want to keep that energy. Just, oh yeah, good. And then ba, and ba. We never want to do this, guys, because, you're just asking to get hit, first of all. What Wing Chun is supposed to do is close the gap and end the fight. So if he throws one, that's it. I want to move in, and then from there, do whatever needs to be done to just, boom, 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 and then it's over. So you see, ours is just so in and so.
So you know Wing Chun, I assume. I saw you do some of the techniques when we were at WACFest. Could you talk through a little bit of what he's explaining?
Oh yeah, definitely. I really like how he said, we don't want to stand here, because he's basically just trading traps and strikes and blocks with the fellow, and then he's also not moving offline or anything. He's just kind of standing right in the kill zone, where he could just get. It's only a matter of time before he eats one, from there. But I really like what he said about, in what we're supposed to do in Wing Chun is to move in. And basically, once you get your initial block and strike or trap, that's when you go and you basically use that forward pressure. That's kind of another term that gets thrown around a lot in like Wing Chun and Kung Fu circles. But one of the ways that one dude that I got to train with a little bit, there was one of Bruce Lee's first students in Seattle.
What's his name?
Was this? Oh God!
Is he a Filipino?
Jesse Glover. Glover.
Okay, I don't know.
He was a black fellow, and he was like one of Bruce's first students in the Seattle area. And Bruce was getting really into the sensitivity around that time. But Jesse Glover wrote this book about his experiences with Bruce and everything. And one of the things that he talked about in this book was about sensitivity, and how Bruce's approach to Wing Chun was a little different, a little more aggressive, and he felt it was like more American.
Can you explain what you mean by sensitivity for the audience?
Oh yeah, definitely. The idea of when you feel someone's energy, when you connect with someone's energy from a strike, say you use a parry or something, and you feel suddenly that they want to go around your block, and being able to, the sensitivity would be the attribute of being able to feel where they're trying to go and then block again. Or in reverse, it could be you strike and then you feel the energy of their block. And so instead of trying to fight directly against that energy, your sensitivity would enable you to go around it. So with this forward pressure idea, one of the analogies that I remember someone talking about is like when you're working on a car and there's a bolt that you just cannot get off. and then you keep torquing on this bolt, and then your hand slips off, and you practically break your knuckles because the crazy force of the blow.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that Bruce Lee used to say all the time is that I don't hit, it hits all by itself. and the idea is that if you maintain that forward pressure, then as soon as your sensitivity, it's almost like it's connected with your subconscious or your reflexes. Yeah. As soon as your sensitivity feels that opening, it's like you don't even have to think about it. It just hits all by itself. And it's with that pressure of that built up pressure of the forward pressure of you trying to get in, and searching for that opening. And I just it's really interesting because Bruce was really heavily into like isometrics, and he would develop that pressure, pushing up against his desk. He would call it flowing his chi, right? And he would be in class and he would be like training, pushing his forearms up against the desk. But that to me, like as someone who's really into like the Wing Chun and also the Filipino arts, and just someone who, I don't know, I like the idea of closing and ending the encounter as quickly as possible.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, and and that's basically, in a different sense, that's what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu does too. They find a way to get past the kill zone where they're going to get hurt by the opponent's strikes and kicks and everything. Yeah. And they get so close that they just shut the person down, and it ends it can end the encounter, really quickly. And that's, I think he was doing like a striking version of that with the way he was trapping and using that forward pressure to basically off balance the opponent, and get him in a position like where he could do that, he almost went into like that very Ip Man, the movie about Ip Man where he turns the dude around and has his face between his knees and just like hammers him into the ground with a straight blast there. What he was doing in his technique reminded me a little bit of that kind of energy, just that very aggressive, non-relenting kind of, that relentless forward pressure. And I think that's very interesting too, that's in Wing Chun, because Wing Chun, at least what I was taught about it, is that it was more of like it was for women and people of slight stature to be able to deal with stronger opponents.
Let me speak a little bit to this. Like I said, I ran a sparring club for 8 years with a Wing Chun teacher, good friend of mine. And I sparred Wing Chun guys to the point where I know how to defeat the system now. I'm not saying it's a bad system or whatever. I highly recommend it, but he often talked about how it's attributed to a Buddhist nun. I can't pronounce her name, but the reality of Wing Chun is that it's half snake and half crane. So this woman she was very, very, very good at Kung Fu. And there's a legend where, she was, some man wanted to marry her, and she said, if I give me a year and if I can defeat you in a fight, then I don't have to marry you. And I don't know if it's true or not, but whatever. The thing I wanted to focus on though in the video is how very, very different the guy in the brown jacket looked as opposed to the guy with the long fist. So it was extremely tight, extremely small. He was able to very subtly capture the punch and move it just inches away from his face. So it's so opposite the long fist strategy and also, I talked about strategy, technique, and principle. So he's using principles that you can't see, and I don't think that he's even talking about it in this, because the physics that Wing Chun guys use is kind of like the way that they stand is like, essentially they create their body to be kind of like an iron pole that's like rooted into the ground. And they generally, they can, shuffle forward and et cetera and side to side, but they generally just pivot. You come to them, they don't go to you, and once you're inside their range, you better watch out. So, and this forward pressure you were talking about. So when someone's punching you, they're throwing energy at you. and you can simply use it against them. So oftentimes I would fall into my punches, or not my punches, my opponent's punches. You know, he somehow made my arms feel super heavy, like terribly heavy, very uncomfortable. And then I would fall into these like throat chops and these chin punches. Very uncomfortable, very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the video a little bit. I'm going to rewind a little bit. And after having talked about this, hopefully the audience can kind of understand what they're seeing a little bit. So let's go on mute for a second.
Boom, there's that touch. I've already gotten him off from here, which is great. And I've started taking the center line. From there, of course, using our chi sao skills, I want to get in. So I could do a lop sao, I can do whatever it is. Boom. So, you know, it's very good. Yeah, boom. Same thing.
When he talks about a lop sao, you know, once again, that's Cantonese. What he's doing is he's pulling the arm down while he's punching. So it's the combined energy of someone pulling somebody into a punch. So that's twice the power. So even though he doesn't seem very powerful, kind of like the long fist guy looked amazingly powerful, those pull punches they can be devastating. I'm just letting people know. Now he's being nice. He's not going full power on his buddy here, but let's continue a little bit.
Yeah.
I just want to keep that energy. Just, oh yeah, good, and then and bah. You never want to do this, guys, because I mean, you're just asking to get hit, first of all. What Wing Chun is supposed to do is close the gap and end the fight. So if he throws one, that's it. I want to move in, and then from there, you know, do whatever needs to be done to just, you know, boom, 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 you know, and then it's over. So you see, ours is just so in and so centered. Yeah, like once we're in, we don't want to get out.
Long fist is a very different martial art than Wing Chun, but has some similar principles in that it gets in very close, gets in.
Are you muted, Donald?
So I didn't know I was going to get a commercial in the middle of that. I'm like,
that's cool.
I'm trying to turn it off. The commercials are the bane of my existence. All right, looks like we're back on.
What if every time someone swiped their credit card? Hey,
hold on. I'm so sorry. I really, really hate commercials. Like you can't imagine. If I were Batman,
I thought it was going to be a martial arts commercial.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? If I were Batman, I would beat up all commercials. All right, let's go back.
All right.
There's a lot of.
All right, I'm sorry. So just one last point. Okay, Wing Chun guys, he mentioned in the video, he said, close the gap. So having sparred Wing Chun guys for 8 years, there's something about them that is really disturbing. And what it is that, you know, they say nature hates a vacuum. So once you engage them, there's like a vacuum of space in between you where whenever you try to move away from them, they follow you. There's like a magnetism that they're locked into you like a magnet, and it's so hard to get rid of them. So like once they get inside you, you're pretty much finished if you don't know some techniques as how to get out. But and that's strategy. There's technique obviously that allows you to do that strategy. The principles of stickiness, as we talked about it before, that's the key. So here's the problem, and here's kind of the secret of it, is that when people are engaged in martial arts or fighting, combat, etc., again, it's energy against energy. And so it's sort of like, you know, I would say yin and yang, empty and full. If you are full and you're resisting them, that's how they got you. They're using your resistance against you. If you're empty and relaxed, like Tai Chi, and you're more like just like a branch in the breeze, a leaf on the breeze, and you're just moving and flowing with them, they cannot stick to you. And therefore,
it's very difficult to deal with someone like that. I've had many encounters with people, not necessarily Tai Chi masters. I mean, I've stuck hands with a couple, but I mean, the person who like you're trying to get in and get traps and get your strikes, but they just keep on disengaging. That's so frustrating.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. And then, you know, if you're looking, that's another mistake that a lot of times I've made, and I see other people that are like Wing Chun and JKD guys make, is they look for the trap. So it's like they have this attachment to try and use their trapping techniques, and they forget it's about getting your hits in, you know?
Yeah.
And they look for it, and then I've gotten clobbered many times.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, but it's just one of those things you have to learn, you know?
You made an interesting point there too, the whole like getting clobbered. Like you have to be working with people you trust. There has to be some level.
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm not going to go to the hospital, but at the same time, it kind of feels good getting hit. There's some weird thing about it that makes you feel like I passed that test. I can get hit several times and keep going.
Yeah, you know? And you're like, hey, I didn't die.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been okay. Like there was the hardest time I ever got hit was I met my Wing Chun buddy. He has his teacher from Hong Kong come in once a year and do workshops. And I'm the outsider. I'm like, you know, he thought of me as the Hungar guy or whatever. But yeah, I'm not specifically Hungar, but, you know, he had to prove to all his students, like, oh, we're not going to let this outsider, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I try to be really like, I'm very humble. I you know, I'm not coming here with an ego. I'm not trying to defeat you. I'm trying to learn from you. Like, I'm not your enemy, you know, like that kind of thing. And you know, Chinese have a way of smiling and nodding their head, but they're not going to go along with what you just said. And you can take that all the way to the bank. But anyway, so he did a specific type of a Wing Chun strike on me that very, very literally feels like dropping a load of bricks on your chest. And
oh, man.
Intensely painful. All of your guts get squished inside your body. And the only reason why I was able to take that hit was because I learned how to transfer energy into the ground. And this this is one of those like it's not a secret of Kung Fu, but it's more advanced, is that, you know, if you get hit, it's the same thing like any other kind of energy that you're working with. You just transfer it into the ground where it neutralizes. So you have to have all your joints and your tendons and your bones all aligned. And then when the energy comes in, you relax and let it out. You direct it out of you. You know, otherwise, if you hold it in, you're gonna get injured pretty seriously.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds like something that you would have to spend quite a bit of time, like, you know, preparing and practicing something like that in order to be able to do it. Like when some dude hits you in sparring, right?
Yeah, it's a really hard thing to explain, but, you know, in time people can learn how to do it. You have to have like the right teacher for that kind of stuff. But let's go back to the video a bit here and see what else we can enjoy.
Contraction, expansion, a lot of big explosive kind of movements, and
awesome.
There's a lot of like different kinds of punches. Like punches move like in non-traditional ways. An element of wind up and like twisting and untwisting. And
I would want to take the center line and then dominate it like that. So Spencer, what's sort of your version of that? Say, even if I had a stance or if I was punching, what would you usually do?
If you were coming in, I would definitely want to gather you.
Oh, okay.
That'd be like the verb I would use.
Cool.
So
okay.
if you're
say
punching in, then what I'm doing is I'm bringing you in. See, I'm also on the outside.
Right.
And from there, there's a lot of. This kind of looks not too unfamiliar with
it. It does, yeah. It's cool.
But yeah, so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of like moving down in order to move up, and
cool.
A lot of like using your whole body, seemingly overzealous kind of movement.
Yeah. What about legs too? Is it sort of similar like that for us? Again, we tend to be wanting to be close. We'll do a lot of stuff like this, like kind of tight stuff, keeping it too low. We do kick above the waist, and like Sifu would say to me, like, would you punch somebody in the foot then why are you going to kick them in the head?
Great. But generally, we wouldn't need to go anywhere above here, like around like this stomach area,
That's similar. Yeah.
because it wouldn't make so much sense. In a form, it will appear, of course, but
right.
that's definitely more for like the exercise element to it. Most of the power is going to be generated from the front foot that is like allowing this energy to pass through. So really, I'm already past you, but my foot just needs to catch up to it. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
So that's definitely a big element of that. Also a lot of like linear, like pushing, like you see, like it like comes from like the core. It's almost cool. Like it's like a punch, but with your foot.
Thank you so much, Spencer, for sharing some stuff with us.
Pretty neat stuff there. It's fascinating because that gathering in energy is not a whole lot different than the stickiness. It's just a different technique with the same principle. So now the audience is watching me use these terms and applying them with what we're seeing. I hope that the audience is kind of piecing these things together. What I find interesting too is the swooping motions. Did you notice how he's like, we go down so that we can go up?
Which is very yin and yang.
Totally.
It's tough, right?
So this is the thing. Nobody can. The universe is binary. Nobody can escape yin and yang. Everything is high and low, heavy and light, empty and full, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So once you just simply harness those natural energies, your martial arts like zoom way up the scale. Like you level up big time, I guess. But and I don't know. Were any other anything you noticed there or comments you wanted to make?
Well, having the background in the Korean martial arts, in addition to like the Wing Chun, I feel like even between arts, there's a good sense of balance. The Taekwondo was like very hard and long range, and probably more similar to the way that the long fist guy was generating power. It was a lot of use of the whipping power from the waist and whatnot. And not to say, Wing Chun definitely has that, but it's more subtle, and they use a lot of like shifting, from their feet, going from, they have a stance called the inverted horse, and then they have one where you turn at like a 45. Oh, did I lose you? Hello? Oh, shoot. Something happened to Donald, I think. Maybe I'll hold down the fort till he gets back here. So he, doing the shifting and whatnot. And the thing I noticed about the long fist style that I really enjoyed is that it just looks like the motions are bigger. And though there's a lot of subtlety, it's more athletic. And I appreciate both sides. Like I appreciate the subtlety. Oh, there you are. Thank goodness.
No, I'm good.
The subtlety of the Wing Chun, as opposed to the athleticism and the dynamism of the long fist.
Yeah, they're different personality types if you think about it. And
but
that's
I also like to see them juxtaposed and maybe even used in conjunction. But maybe that's like the Amerima in me. It's like likes to mix everything up.
Okay, see, that might be American martial arts, if you will, is the idea of essentially taking these things and mixing them together and making them our own in some way. So after, again, like being a long fist stylist, if you will, and then sparring short range guys for so long, I learned their stuff. It just kind of gets amalgamated into what I do. So, then just naturally and organically, I now have both short and long range. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it's a good thing if and when you get into martial arts, you should try to diversify it a bit. Like if you're really good at X, then go do Y, whatever the thing is that you're not good at. So it's a lot of cool stuff to talk about here. I hope that people in the audience have been enjoying this. I hope that everybody can leave some kind of comment or question below. And, I think we're going to maybe try a few more episodes of this. Our friend Yiz, who I had on Imperium Art recently, I didn't know that she did martial arts. She's got a pretty strong background in martial arts. And so
yeah, I really enjoyed that show. I was in the chat and also listening while I was delivering food.
Marvelous.
And I really got a kick out of that. And she had some very detailed knowledge that she still held on to, like, because she made it sound like it was quite a while ago that she learned from her teacher, but she knew the exact precise name of the system and everything, and what it was based on. And I could just tell she's like another kindred spirit kung fu nerd, just like us,
Yeah, and also Thamster, Tyler Hamilton has been doing martial arts as well. So if there's other people in our sphere who have done martial arts, want to learn about martial arts, Luke and I certainly are available for your questions, etc. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming, and thank you so much, Luke, for spending time and sharing your expertise. Again, this is just scratching the tip of the iceberg here, but I hope people found this to be useful.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Donald. And anytime, let me know. I'm happy to nerd out on Kung Fu, man.
Awesome,
it's a pleasure.
Dude. Fabulous. Okay, and thank you to everybody in the audience. Once again, subscribe, share, leave a comment, and God bless you. We'll see you next time.